It's the middle of the week here on The Holy Truth, and we're shouldering our way through yet another Living Dead apocalypse scenario with Dead Age, which is a real middle of the week game if I ever saw one. You don't need me to tell you that the sheer number of zombie horde titles available on Steam has actually formed its own zombie horde. A lifeless, stumbling, blank-eyed mob of clones ravenous for your money and little else, from which precious few can hope to stand out enough to make any sort of difference. Dead Age's killer selling point is its Final Fantasy style combat with permadeath. 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 Ares! What? I'm not crying. You're crying. Dead Age is really the equivalent of stuffing a toe mold eaten sock with candy and calling it a Christmas stocking. There's an intense amount of micromanagement going on behind the scenes, but the entire experience is crammed into round after round of the game's sluggish combat system, which you will be staring at for a good 95% of your playtime. Comparing it to Final Fantasy's breakneck battling is really little more than glamorized name dropping, as it resembles the basic form of any template JRPG, but bogs itself down with an AP system that just does not want to get out of bed in the mornings. We'll look at that properly in a minute, but first let's roll back to the beginning of the game where you pick your character. Or I guess your character gets picked for you. A student! Whoa, deadly! All we gotta do now is find a society with an economy that still functions, and we can use our fearsome drain taxes attack. Once you've named your college dropout, Dead Age's tutorial guides you through the finer points of combat. You can choose between melee and ranged attacks, the latter of which feeds off a limited supply of ammo, and gather loot from successful skirmishes, which mainly comes down to crafting supplies, but occasionally throws in the odd health item or low level armor to keep you standing. Depending on how you use your experience points to develop your character, you can also use some class based skills to heal and buff your allies, but much like the bonus attacks that come to you as a result of growing out your skill tree, these are all dependent on using your action points. Now the AP is really what strangles Dead Age into a death march. You start whichever fight you stumble into with 1 AP, which is good enough for a basic clump with your melee weapon or a shot with your firearm. As the rounds grind on, you gain additional AP to power your more advanced attacks, but such is the difficulty curve that you'll either have already practically beaten whatever zombies you're up against, or be languishing on death's door, requiring you to waste a turn delving into your backpack for some medical aid instead. Now you can't stack your AP with a chain of attacks, so although 1 AP equals 1 punch, you can't choose to string a number of lower level hits together while you wait for your leg sweep ultra to charge, so ultimately the combat takes on a routine that becomes exhausting very quickly. There is an ability available that raises your AP, but this takes an entire turn to perform, and for the damage output you get, you really might as well have just spent 2 turns attacking, especially given how often the living dead manage to fucking block everything you throw at them. This ability also forces you down one particular job development path, which is at odds with Dead Age's character building mechanic. When you're not fighting, you're managing your camp. Somebody needs to be hunting and be good at it, somebody needs to keep a lookout for bandits and be good at it. So you're forced incredibly early to abandon certain survivor story paths and turn them into blank labour drones, because if you spend all their experience points on turning them into hunters or lookouts, they will suffer very quickly if you lead them out into a combat environment. Likewise, you need somebody to craft your gear, ammo and medical supplies for you day by day, because you cannot do it yourself when you're out on the road scavenging for supplies. Now that really wouldn't be so bad if every day wasn't split up into 20 fucking battles, some of which are split up into multiple waves, and that's 20 battles minimum, because if you fail a looting event, that's another fight. And it's not like you can afford not to loot everything in sight, so you're really looking at a harrowing hour of fighting the same bloody zombies with the same bloody combat routines over and over every day with little to no reward. Plus, since ammo and guns are so rare and you can't waste time training somebody to craft them early on, you'll inevitably end up dumping a lot of skill points into your hand-to-hand fighting for every survivor on your roster, and that's really the unfortunate summary for Dead Age. There is a lot of choice available here, Or rather, there is a lot of potential for choice available here, but it's a game where only a handful of those choices are the right ones to make. Story-wise, the game is fairly well written, but completely typical of what you'd expect from the environment. Somebody gets hurt, so off you go for medical supplies. Somebody's got separated from their wife, so let's all go and look for her. Somebody's sister's a zombie, so you get a big emotional scene where your friend machine guns her and you give her the dignified death of wrapping a club round her skull so hard that she pirouettes in the air like a ballet dancer. But it's not like that really matters, because any potential for plot nuance is lost to the sheer slog of combat, a problem that could be easily solved by halving everybody's health and letting them access the goddamned abilities I've spent 2 hours earning to maybe inject a bit of life into what feels like some sort of experimental zombie boxing drama. It's worth noting that Dead Age is still in early access, so there's still the potential to radically reform the sloth-like pacing of the game, but as of right now, there's too much trying to happen in far too narrow a scope for it to be enjoyable for long.